Here we are in section 43, where we're going to talk about the payment of customs duties, how importers actually affect payment to the U.S. Department of the Treasury at the end of the day through CBP. We've mentioned this a couple of times, but from a financial perspective, we want to reiterate that in the U.S., importers can receive imported merchandise prior to payment of customs duties. That was historically known as immediate delivery privileges, as we see in our sub-bullet. But now that this two-step process of importation that we spoke of in a prior section is really conducted through the entry summary, the 7501, that's changed a little bit. Basically, and this remains true, second bullet, importers have up until 10 days after the entry summary date to pay duties, taxes, and fees to the government, and that is the Treasury Department. We won't go into the historical means through which importers paid customs. These days, it's quite electronic, actually. And there's really two formats that we're going to talk about here, and we say that in our third bullet, which is, apart from paying via traditional means, meaning walking a check over to customs, U.S. CBP offers two primary ways in which to pay duties, both of which we're going to discuss here. The first is the Automated Clearinghouse, ACH as it's called, and the other being periodic monthly statement. ACH has been around for a while. It's really a wire transfer from an importer's bank to the U.S. Department of the Treasury. CBP's Automated Clearinghouse is an electronic payment option that allows users, importers, to pay duties, taxes, fees, etc. from a designated bank account. Within ACH, as we note in our second bullet, CBP has three options. First sub-bullet, there's ACH debit, which is for all ABI filers and is used for payment of duties, taxes, etc. Second is ACH credit, which is for anyone that clears formal entries on statements. We'll talk more about that in just a second. And then ACH refund, which is for parties expecting a refund from the government. ACH is quite common these days and something important to talk about. Upon setting up an ACH account, the payment process begins with the receipt of a preliminary statement. And that is a transmission from CBP, as we note in our sub-bullet, listing entry summaries that are scheduled for payment, meaning that on a 10-day cycle, as we alluded to a moment ago, payment becomes due to customs. Importers can get their stuff before they have to pay customs duties. That period has historically been 10 days. Through this transmission, this preliminary statement, customs is saying, hey, your 10 days are up, time to pay. Second bullet, once the filer reviews and approves the statement, said filer transmits payment authorization back to CBP, all done electronically. From there, the filer receives a confirmation message back from CBP. And then finally, if the confirmation message is error-free, a final statement is sent to the filer and payment is effected. It's a wire transfer at the end of the day from an account that a filer, an importer, sets up specific to the payment of U.S. customs duties. Let's move on to the periodic monthly statement, which has been around for a bit, but not quite as pervasive as ACH. It has a lot of advantages, so it's important that we talk about them. First bullet, U.S. CBP offers another program known as the Periodic Monthly Statement. And as the name would indicate, the Periodic Monthly Statement program is different from ACH in that it allows for the consolidation of payment on individual entries into a single statement, where we're not paying by entry. All entries are bunched together during a specific period of time, and the importer pays off of a statement. Third bullet, in other words, periodic monthly statement summarizes / consolidates daily activity into a monthly payment program, which obviously, from both an administrative and financial perspective, is very advantageous to importers. Quick trade tip, periodic monthly statement is run through ACE, so it's part of that integrated approach to conducting imports into the U.S. The essential feature of the periodic monthly statement is that it is designed for a single monthly payment that is due on the 15th working day of the month scheduled by the filer. We don't have to make payments every day via ACH, although we certainly could as an importer. The periodic monthly statement bunches entries together, and payments are made on the due date of the 15th working day of the month. To talk a little bit more about the advantages and benefits offered by periodic monthly statement, we can say in our second bullet that it applies to self-filers as well as importers using customs brokers. That's a nice feature. The statement can be on a port or national level. This is especially attractive for importers that bring goods into multiple ports and they need to see what's going on a port-specific basis. It also allows brokers to pay on behalf of importers, and that's been a fairly common practice long before periodic monthly statement, where the broker does pay duties, does front duties on behalf of the importer, and then collects the monies later from the importer. We'll talk more on that in just a bit, actually. And think of this from a cash flow perspective, meaning the need to have monies available to pay customs duties. Periodic monthly statement offers visibility into the statement as it is being built throughout the month, which is to say the importer, through ACE, can see the statement and determine how much monies are going to be needed on that 15th working day of the month. Clearly, there are some very nice features to periodic monthly statement. We mentioned a moment ago about how customs brokers they don't have to, but can pay duties on behalf of an importer and then collect the monies subsequent to that payment. That's what we're talking about here in a supply chain perspective entitled The Payment of Customs Duties. One very clear policy that must be in place between an importer and a customs broker is related to the payment of customs duties. Whereas it is the responsibility of the importer to pay duties, it is not unusual for a broker to pay duties on behalf of the importer and then collect the funds from the importer after the fact. While this has indeed been a common practice for many years, more and more customs brokers are reluctant to provide this service to importers. Second paragraph. One of the main reasons why brokers don't like to front duties on behalf of importers is that the practice ties up the broker's cash flow. The broker's laying out their money on behalf of the importer and having to collect that money later. For example, if a broker pays duties 10 days after an entry summary is filed and gives 30 days credit to the importer, the broker is experiencing negative cash flow for 20 days, assuming that the importer actually pays in 30 days. Last sentence in the second paragraph. Also, there's always the risk of insolvency on the part of the importer, meaning that they don't have the money to pay, or they go out of business, and the broker's on the hook for fronting $50,000 in customs duties. There's a lot of risk associated with that. Last paragraph. The practice of brokers fronting duties has waned in recent years due to the advent of the automated clearinghouse as well as periodic monthly statement. The real reason? The other reason is that brokers charge such low fees that it is no longer financially feasible to pay duties for importers. What does that mean? Well, think of it this way. If a broker charges $100 for a customs entry and they're fronting $50,000 in duties and then getting paid 30 days, 45 days later, the cost of capital of that money outlaid will far exceed the $100 fee. That's the real reason why brokers don't like to front duties on behalf of importers. They can certainly do that as a strategic decision, but it is important to be cognizant of the fact that fewer and fewer brokers, for these and probably other reasons, are unwilling to do that. We will stop here, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the liquidation of entries, where we're getting to the tail end of the entry process.